On April 19, 2026, a high-stakes standoff unfolded in the Gulf of Oman. A U.S. guided missile destroyer intercepted the Tuska, a massive 900-foot Iranian cargo ship. The situation rapidly deteriorated. The American destroyer fired its 5-inch guns directly into the Tuska's engine room, disabling the vessel, before U.S. Marines boarded and seized control of the ship. The U.S. military stated the Tuska was targeted because its crew repeatedly ignored warnings to stop, attempting to intentionally breach a newly established American maritime exclusion zone. By stepping over the line from warning shots to direct lethal force to enforce a highly controversial naval blockade, the United States triggered a severe escalation in an already volatile conflict. To understand why this matters, look at the Strait of Hormuz. It is just 21 miles wide. Normally, 20 million barrels of oil, 20% of global supply, flow through here daily. But today, this vital artery is completely paralyzed. This chart shows the immediate global economic hemorrhage caused by the closure. Brent crude oil prices spiked to a peak of $126 a barrel, and shipping insurance rates skyrocketed to astronomically expensive levels. The sudden halt of traffic created the worst energy supply disruption since the 1970s. The seizure of the Tuska was the boiling point of a localized crisis that quickly held the entire global economy hostage. These specific tactics quickly yielded results, damaging over 20 merchant ships in a matter of weeks. By relying on low-cost, asymmetric warfare, Iran effectively closed the waterway to Western shipping. They choked off the oil supply without ever needing to deploy a massive naval fleet. In response, President Trump demanded the strait reopen. He ordered the U.S. military to immediately clear the mines and established a total naval blockade on all Iranian ports. The mechanics of this blockade were strict. The U.S. Navy began intercepting commercial ships, requiring them to route all their communications through a command center in Bahrain to receive American naval clearance before proceeding. This strategy faced intense international legal backlash. Under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, neutral ships are guaranteed the right of transit passage through international straits, even during armed conflicts. Because of these explicit legal violations, staunch American allies, including the United Kingdom and Australia, publicly refused to support or join the blockade operations. The United States found itself enforcing a unilateral blockade. Attempting to choke the Iranian economy, the U.S. legally isolated itself from its closest global partners. Seeking a way out, the focus shifted to the diplomatic track, with emergency peace talks organized in Islamabad to resolve the maritime standoff. The U.S. delegation pushed for an immediate end to the Iranian closure, with key figures like Jared Kushner leading the negotiations. Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff was also part of this high-level team, signaling Washington's intent to apply maximum diplomatic pressure. However, the talks completely collapsed. Iran flatly refused to lift its threat to shipping as long as the U.S. maritime blockade remained actively in place. With negotiations dead, kinetic enforcement became the only remaining option on the table. This total diplomatic failure leads straight back to the Gulf of Oman and the direct firing on the cargo ship Tosca. Seizing the Tosca proved the U.S. was willing to use lethal force to enforce its perimeter, yet the action failed to actually reopen the Strait of Hormuz to commercial traffic. Outside the Gulf, other world powers observed the American military's single-minded focus on Iran and began advancing their own territorial claims. While the U.S. Navy was tied down enforcing the blockade, China took advantage of the chaos, moving to block the Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea. It revealed a glaring strategic paradox. Possessing overwhelming naval supremacy does not easily solve the problem of a deeply weaponized, localized geographic choke point. The primary long-term casualty of this crisis is the foundational maritime principle of freedom of navigation. Iran's asymmetric sea denial and America's legally dubious blockade set a new precedent for how nations contest and control international waters. This fractured international maritime order leaves the global economy permanently vulnerable. It ensures that the next geopolitical flashpoint, wherever it occurs, has the potential to once again hold the world's supply chains hostage.